Jenny Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, thank you. Pleased to take a call on the Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Bill, but I think it does show the emptiness of the government's legislative program that we are debating this bill. It was developed by the former Labor government, the former Lands Minister, the Honourable David Parker, introduced in July 2008, reported back from the Primary Production Select Committee in September 2009, and it has languished on the order paper ever since. And I would much rather be debating, Mr Speaker, a new reserves bill to improve the protection of our marine environment. The National Government has been promising a new marine reserves bill for several elections, but it has yet to deliver. New Zealand was once a world leader in marine protection when we established the first no-take marine reserve at Lee in Cape Rodney in 1977, but now we lag well behind. We've got less than 0.5% of our sea space protected as marine reserve, and most of that is around the sub-Antarctic islands and the Kermadec Islands. But instead we are debating this bill instead of a new marine reserves bill. And I'm pleased, though, that we're not debating the Resource Management Act changes, which was another piece of legislation that the government has promised but has stalled. The Green Party is supporting this bill. We opposed it at first reading, and that was largely because of the changes to the Auckland Art Gallery and the extension to the Art Gallery taking over some land in Albert Park, and the fact that the bill enables some of the parkland to be alienated so that it can be amalgamated with the title of the Auckland Art Gallery. But that has now happened, it's a fait accompli, and the legislation is retrospective in sort of legalising that, so we will be supporting this bill. But I'd like to pick up a few comments made by the previous speaker. He was seeming to associate the bill with the Rules Reduction Task Force, and would be very concerned if that is where the Rules Reduction Task Force is going, because this bill and the Reserves Act are about proper legal process where it comes to decisions about land status. And certainly in this bill, it is making some small changes to the status of particular parcels of land where roads have been widened in Western Taipatini, Kahurangi and Paparoa National Park, for example. But it is not seeking to fundamentally change the content of legislation, which I think was where the member was heading with the government's efforts to undermine good regulation that actually protects the wider community interest. And while I'm grateful to the Honourable Damien O'Connor for his detailed explanation of what the Select Committee did in relation to Esplanade Reserve at Opua and the additional clauses that the Select Committee recommended be included, that was very controversial because those clauses were effectively overriding the Reserves Act and the processes under the Reserves Act, and enabling the Far North District Council to grant easements over the Esplanade Reserve, which would be contrary to the provisions of the Reserves Act. So that's why we strongly support the SOP in the Minister's name, which takes out clauses 34A, B and C, because they are controversial. And I think if they had been in the bill as originally introduced, then it potentially would have attracted a lot more submissions because of the precedent nature of those changes to the Reserves Act, and making it much easier for councils to accommodate commercial activities on public land which had no place to be there. So we're very pleased that the SOP is going through to take those changes to the Reserves Act out of the bill because they are controversial. But some of the other changes, I think, particularly the ones where there are changes to land status in 3 national parks to accommodate road widening, highlight the need for really good process when development activities are going to occur which will affect reserve land and the values of that land, because the road widening at Punakaiki, for example, resulted in the clearance of some vegetation in the national park, some of the magnificent nikau palms there. It occurred right opposite the entrance to the Pancake Rocks walk, and it certainly allowed a lot more parking for buses and cars, but it has meant that there's quite a transition in what was quite a narrow corridor through the park, which made people appreciate the park more, its landscapes, which made traffic slow down, is now a very wide tar-sealed road. So it has happened. It's appropriate that it be authorised through the bill, but it did demonstrate that perhaps the process that the Transport Agency and its predecessors went through was not that robust in the fact that it's now come to the Parliament seeking retrospective provision for that. But Mr Speaker, we are supporting the bill and very pleased with the supplementary order paper removing those provisions around Opua. Thank you.